boys are back on That's a Tap to recap UFC 287 Miami. DJ, how are you doing?
Man, I'm still hungover from the card, man. Like, man, it was a banger of a card, and I'm still
Mm,
recovering from everything that happened.
yep, tell me about it. It was great. We predicted for the main event. We were both right. Uh,
Yep,
take our
absolutely.
victory lap. Uh,
I know, man.
we'll talk about everything, the celebration and everything, but I guess we weren't shocked because we predicted. But the way it happened, DJ, take me through it.
Man, the way it unfolded, it couldn't have happened in a better way. Like, I mean, look, the card was decent up until the main event, and then the main event delivered in truckloads. To be honest, look, we predicted Israel Adesanya will get the win, right? We were, I think, leaning towards a decision victory. Based on the fact that he's technically more sound and he was winning the majority of the past encounters, and then happened to get caught
Mm,
a couple of times and had like a very close fight go decided against him. However, I think I I did not see that knockout coming. Um, but having now let everything sit and settle, man, I think that we could argue that contender Israel Adesanya is on a next level. I think when there is a
mm,
point to prove, when the challenge is stacked high, when the cards are against him and he delivers, he comes in and he delivers, and that's exactly what it was. I mean, to speak about the actual fight itself, it started obviously. We did not see even an ounce of wrestling. We were saying there could be some wrestling elements in there, but obviously, there wasn't enough time to exploit or go into that area. But at the same
mm,
time, also, I think it felt like Israel Adesanya stepped into into that cage wanting to prove a point, and he did prove that point. I think the whole week, and you said this, you actually had a different pick. Obviously, you were leaning towards Pereira, but then when you saw his intensity, when you saw his focus leading up into those media days and leading up into the fight, you
yeah.
obviously went with Israel Adesanya, and that's rightfully so, and that's exactly what it was. And the intensity he kept saying, I'm not interested in talking. Let me do the talking in the cage. And look, he went and did everything he said he would do, and it's surprising how a win elevates certain things compared as opposed to a loss. Before the first fight, he used the same lines as like, I'll leave you frozen like Elsa. Obviously, the loss, and then people were mocking on those lines, whereas he's using the same line, but now there's an elevation to that line. It looks very cool as opposed to being cringy. So, um, I mean, man, great, stellar performance. The first round was very technical. It was almost a chess match with
Mm,
both parties exchanging strikes, being very cautious. We were talking about how Israel Adesanya will find himself in a position where he needs to pressure because he is the challenger, and boy, did he do that. He kept pressuring Pereira. And the first round, I actually gave it to Israel Adesanya. I think it was a very close round, but it's still, for me, it was it was the busier fight. It was landing more shots. You had a lot of success in terms of landing strikes, be it headshots, be it body shots, kicks. Pereira still kept investing in those leg kicks, which were piling up as well. We saw throughout the fight, and obviously the second round happens, and I feel like Pereira came into the second round very confident. If you notice the corner talk, Pereira was very vocal in that corner break after the first round, and he was saying how he's quite getting the good reads. He's confident about the shots he's employing, and his game plan being implemented. I think, and this is where IQs come into play. Man, there's no one better than with a lot of great fighters, across all mixed martial arts organizations, but very few pure mixed martial artists, and Israel Adesanya is one of them, man. Like, I mean, to have the knowledge to be able to lure your opponent to the same position you were in, right? To where you got TKO'd in the last fight, and then giving them a false sense of security, and then obviously coming back with that wonderful, wonderful, beautiful right hand, unbalancing him in that first shot, and then quickly following it up with the knockout blow and then hammer fist for good measures. It's just technicality, man. The understanding of the situation, and obviously, if there is one thing that I'd like to highlight above all else is his mental fortitude. To be able to come up against an opponent who's beaten you 3 times across 2 different sports, and to then now come and claim victory in the manner in which he did was fantastic, right? To have that mental strength, and not many people have it, right? And this is what makes these people special. Israel Adesanya is a very, very special individual, a very special fighter. Rejoice him and celebrate him while he is still here, because they're generational fighters. You get them once in a lifetime. The Conor McGregor's, Israel Adesanya. So to be able to say what you're going to do and go out and do that, man,
Mm.
it was emphatic. And I also feel like, I mean, look, I wanted to ask this question. Do you feel that Alex Pereira was overconfident?
Yeah, look, great question. And that was actually going to lead up to my point. And piggybacking everything you said, I agree. I think uh, a fighter like Adesanya has to be challenged, right? And I think losing has brought out the best in him. And I think winning the last one created a bit of weakness for Pereira.
Yeah,
Back to your point, yeah, I agree. There's an element of overconfidence. Um, he got a bit overconfident in that position, thinking, "Oh, I've got him for the finish," but he wasn't reading the opponent very well
spot on.
because he wasn't really, dazed. His hands were up. He
Yeah,
wasn't not like before where his head was open and he was taking blows. This was very, very different. And the
yeah,
counter punch, as we know, is the most dangerous situation to be in. Um,
yeah.
I really do hope, DJ. What do you think of the chances we see a rematch? And to answer your own question, do you think do you agree that he was confident?
Yeah, I mean, I felt he was a bit too overconfident, like hands down. He was marching down. I think it's that moment he got overzealous. He saw him, like, okay, well, as Anya said, I was playing possum, right? And
Mm,
he thought, "Oh, I got him again. This is my opportunity to like get him down, get him out of here and like cement this spot." And look, that kind of played into Adesanya's game plan, lured him in, and this is how well he read his opponent. He knew, like, whenever he throws that left hook, which is his power weapon, which is demolish opponents with, right? He knew, like, in that brief moment he will have an opening to land that right overhand, and which he did, right? And for people who say, look, I think now he was actually hurt, but he got that opportunity. Um, I don't think so. To be able to land it so precisely and then do that second follow up so quickly, I don't think he was hurt. He was definitely playing possum there. And look, unfortunately, for Alex Pereira, he walked right into that trap and obviously got caught.
oof.
And look, this fight, I mean, look, being very respectful to Pereira, the better mixed martial artist or the better martial artist won. That was the simple case here. Will we
Yeah.
get a third fight? All right, I'm going to say it like this. Yes, we will, but not straight away,
Mm,
right? I believe Pereira goes up to 205, right? And I think
mm,
he's going to have a decent amount of success up there. And I won't be surprised if he finds himself with the light heavyweight belt again. And look, all of a sudden, you're finding yourself in a scenario where you can put up a super fight against two guys who've had rivalries panning across multiple years, across multiple sports. One holds the middleweight championship, the other holds the 205 championship. Israel Adesanya steps up again for the second time to try and become double champ against his nemesis, right? And I think it's like a perfect storyline. I just don't think the rematch happens straight away in middleweight. I don't think they fight again in middleweight. And look, I'll even go one step further. I always was before the fight, I always felt like Adesanya is going to come out on top, but I always had this question in me, like, would we need to see it a third time? Because it's all good and well, because this guy's 3-0, right? And then also, like, obviously, now they're 1-1. There will be 1-1 if Adesanya were to win. But
mm,
then now, having seen this fight and seeing how it all materialized, I'm actually not too keen to see it for the third time, right? So yeah,
mm.
to be honest, like, I think we'll get it in a different setting, and it all depends on how much success Alex is going to have upstairs at 205.
Yep.
But hey, here's something for you, right? Do you think this is Izzy 2.0, man? Like, I mean, we all knew is a fantastic fighter, a fantastic mixed martial artist. Do you think now this challenge, going through this camp and putting himself through what he, put himself through, do you think now we're gonna get a even better, however impossible that seems, an even better Israel Adesanya moving forward?
Yeah, it's very possible. I think he's learnt a lot. It's humbled him, as a fighter, DJ. Every time you take a loss and you lose a belt, you get
Yeah,
humbled because you're not the best fighter on the night, and you have to go back and live with that. You have
yeah,
to go back into camp. You have to change some things, and Adesanya was willing to change things. He
yeah,
wasn't all about that bravado this time round. It wasn't all
yeah,
that fancy walkout,
yeah,
breakdancing and all that coming out. It was just
yeah,
very simple. He was
yeah,
focused,
yeah,
and it worked. And I
yeah,
think he understands now. Just as human beings, we mature.
yeah,
And I think Adesanya is pretty young. You see it. We'll talk about his celebrations and stuff, and
yeah,
he definitely lives in the moment. But
yeah,
sometimes I think he used to get a little bit too carried away.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no,
So
absolutely, man. I think he said this whole camp, the theme of the camp was focused, right? And that's exactly what it was. He was focused throughout 5 weeks. He was focused in that walk into the cage. He seemed angry. He seemed like he had a point to prove. He was focused inside that cage, and he, got the job done. Great to see him.
yeah.
And I think, honestly, I feel that he has leveled up after this camp to the point where I can't see any other middleweight coming close, even close to like beating him, right?
Mm,
Um, so, look, to quickly touch on that celebration part, yeah, look, he loves his celebrations. Obviously, it shows how much it meant to him, and the attention to detail, even that a celebration with putting those three arrows in him, 3 arrows for the three times he got beat, and sort of quelling his demons. There's so much detail in everything he does, which is great. And to have that fortitude and that confidence to say, look, I will win, and this is what I'll do once I win, right?
yep.
And I
You
think,
said it.
and look, this is why these fighters are special, right? They never stop believing in themselves, right? This is what sets us apart from them. We as human beings, we're very doubtful. We take setbacks and we just want to not attempt that again. Once hurt, twice shy kind of mentality. Whereas these guys, man, they prove to us again and again that they put everything on the line. One of the beautiful lines that he said was like, they were talking about betting and said like, every single time I step in there, I bet on myself. I put my life on the line. Right, that's the
Mm.
biggest bet ever. Right, so I think for
Speak.
me that resonated a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I think Israel Adesanya is a great champion. Look, man, he's the Muhammad Ali of MMA. I know some of those lackluster fights, mostly because of his opponents. Right, if the opponents, we saw him like if he doesn't have a challenge, he doesn't this doesn't come out. Right, so it's upon the challenger to go take that belt. Right, and so this
Yep.
is it. He challenged himself. And look, man, to lose like that, anyone in his position, he could have just sat out for a year, recollected himself, and said, "Look, maybe I'll fight someone else and then come back." And because let's be honest, what he's done, his resume warrants for him to get whatever he wants. He could have asked the UFC, "When I'm back, give me that title fight," but not for now. They would have obliged, but no, it's not him. And he's like, I want the challenge. Let me take it straight away. 3-0 going in, and all that chatter around him, like to have that focus, that fortitude to go and then get this done. Amazing, very stunning, stellar post-fight uh, octagon interview speech as well. I think it was all heartfelt. He meant it, and you could see how happy he was, how much it meant to him. Did you see did you see the part where he responded to Pereira's son?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That's
Max,
going viral right now with the kid, the
Max.
son crying.
Yeah,
But
that's a
yeah,
bit sad.
he's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's some of the thing where I think he's borderline, taking it a bit far. But
yeah,
it's a sport where you walk the walk, you talk the talk. Talk the talk, you can walk the walk. But
yeah.
let me ask you now, like you mentioned a good point about them moving up. If Izzy's cleaning out the division, then Jan Blachowicz called him out. Does he? Does he then? In fact, he called him out, but he said middleweight. So maybe Jan wants to go down.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's the thing. How is he going to make that weight? Like, I can't. Jan's a big fighter, and then if he for some reason were to make 185, I mean, I'm going to say it openly, like it's an easy fight for Israel Adesanya. Like the what helped Blachowicz in that
Mm.
light heavyweight bout was
Was the
his
weight.
frame and his weight. The advantage that he carried in there. If he's going to give that up, no matter how much he can hydrate in 2 days, it's going to be a draining weight cut. And then, technically, Israel Adesanya is extremely good, right? For me, if you look at what's next for Israel Adesanya, it's true. Like we're either looking at rematches, and the only person who warrants it is another fighter that we really like and adore, which is Robert Whittaker. And I don't know, man. Like whoever fights Israel Adesanya next, it's going to be a tough challenge, right? He's on a high now, and he's gonna be a man on a mission, right?
Yeah.
For me, a matchup in middleweight that'll make me excited. I don't know, there's going to be mixed reactions to this, but I'd like to see Hamza Chimaev, man. I want to see
Mm.
Hamza Chimaev. He's got the it factor. All right, we get it. He hasn't fought a top contender, but he is still really good, right? He is
Mm.
still really good, and he brings that level of threat. We said the striker was his grappler, right? Well, I'd like to see that. Not to say Israel Adesanya hasn't fought anyone like that. He has fought all types of styles, and he's you know quashed them quite easy. But I'd still like to see that Hamza because it is a fresh challenge, right? But other than that, Duplessis one with the other South African fighter who
Yeah.
seems to have developed some beef or animosity for his comments that he made after one of his fights about
Yeah.
Adesanya and Kamaru's not being Africans and all those kind of things, which is quite disrespectful to be honest. But yeah, and
Yeah.
obviously Easy hasn't taken it kindly, and then if that were to come, I mean, that'll be a real like a real bad blood matchup, I reckon, or
Yeah.
Hamza. Hamza brings that it factor, so yeah,
Yeah. One thing, last point I'll make on this before we touch on the co-main is I think the biggest fan about Adesanya for me is that he's active. So
Phew,
he's
it's
not a
unreal.
dude he's not a dude that's not gonna fight for the next 10 months. I think he's gonna fight maybe even two more times this year.
Sometimes,
Maybe two
yeah,
different divisions, maybe one more middleweight defense, and then
yeah,
he's definitely gonna try to be a dual current champ and move up.
yep. There's some exciting matchups there, like Iri Prohashka, man, fantastic fight. I've been asking for
Yeah.
that fight for a very long time. Right, since Iri won that belt the first time. But look, I feel like there's a lot of interesting matchups that are gonna. There's gonna a lot of things will play out. I do feel he will. Look, I feel like look, he definitely can fight two more times.
Mm.
I don't know if he will because of how things will line up because they've kind of lined everything up till about July, right? So we got August and September. If they do the Whittaker fight, I'd love to see it down here, Marvel Stadium, right? Let's pack that up again. Um, I don't think he does the light heavyweight move straight away. I don't think that's going to happen
Mm.
um, straight
I would have
away.
loved
Right? It'll eventually happen for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I would have loved them to delay the Volkanovski, which was announced with Yair. I
yeah,
think had they held off, they could have booked Sydney and done, they've done Melbourne Stadium show. They could have done a Sydney with Adesanya and Volkanovski.
yeah,
Um, October or something. That would have been gravy for everybody. But
yeah,
you know,
especially for us down here. But
yeah,
yeah, I,
Volkanovski's a big draw, and they've given him International Fight Week now.
yeah. I mean, it comes down to this though, right? Is that next matchup Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker? If that is the case, then obviously then all this
Mm.
makes sense. But what if
It
it's not?
seems to be like the way Volkanovski's doing, PR for UFC and things like that. Um, and I think the UFC is very fond. Dana White specifically is very fond of Robert Whittaker.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
they like they like to do good by him, and
yeah.
I think he's although it would be the third time, it's like I don't see anyone else more deserving.
No, no,
From
absolutely
a
not.
fan perspective, I agree with you. I would prefer Hamzat,
Yeah.
but from my just a head perspective, I think Whittaker still deserves that chance. That last fight was pretty close.
It
It
was close.
was
It was
yeah,
a close fight.
it was closer.
Yeah, it was a close fight. Look, the only reason I'm saying it is also because I'm a Whittaker fan as well, as much as I'm an Adesanya fan, is that I just feel like whoever fights Adesanya next, it's gonna be a tough, tall task, right? So I just want someone else to fight him, and then Whittaker can slot in after. It all comes down to timing as well. Like, what if Costa and Hamzat fight quite soon? Right, because that's a matchup that's being rumored,
Oh,
right? And then if Hamzat beats Costa, there you go, bam, you got the case straight away. Hamzat versus Adesanya. Hamzat called him out straight away, straight after the fight, but then Hamzat's been doing this a lot.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I was gonna mention Costa's name. He's that
yeah,
kind of wild card, but he still has to win one more fight at least
yeah.
to get.
Yeah, I'd like to see that Adesanya fight again with him. He's the one person that he hasn't rematched yet. I mean, being the dominant champ he has been, like, it's been mostly rematches. So, like, the one person he hasn't
Mm,
was Costa, right? It will be interesting to see how he takes that fight the second time around. But yeah, man, a lot of exciting stuff. Obviously, the King's on top again. He's sitting on his throne, and I feel like he's going to be comfortably sitting there for a while, right?
yeah,
But let's see. Funnier things have happened in mixed martial arts. But man, well done. Like a lot of respect to Adesanya, a lot of respect to both fighters for obviously a stellar rivalry. And then at the
yeah,
end, the great sportsmanship of how they were bonding together backstage was also very heartwarming to see, especially such a intense rivalry they've had. And they were able to put those aside and like exchange a few words and wish
yeah,
each other well. So yeah, it was
yeah.
nice to see. It was wonderful to see.
Yeah, I really like that. And obviously with Pereira, who was the champion, I'm expecting to see him, fight some amazing opponents and some amazing matchups to come back.
Yeah,
We'll watch this space to see how quickly he recovers and
yeah,
wants to get back into the cage. Um,
absolutely.
but we'll see. But the
Yeah,
the co-main event was a big storyline in this card as well, DJ. We both went with Masvidal, I think. But what were your thoughts on, how it went? How good did Gilbert Burns look?
man, it was a good fight. It was a good fight, right? Obviously, there was this onus on this fight that when whoever's going to win, they have to make an absolute banger of a statement to be able to
Mm,
leapfrog Colby Covington to claim or ask for that title shot. It was a good win for Gilbert Burns, but I just don't think it did that. It didn't do it didn't have that wow factor. It wasn't a knockout, it wasn't a finish.
mm,
There were times where I feel like Gilbert could have capitalized and finished the fight, especially when he had George Hurt wobbled multiple times. With some clean strikes. I understand it is always a risk trading with someone like George Masvidal because he's got a mentality. He's got from his backyard
yeah,
brawl
he's a
days where
brawler.
you're never out of a fight. He will come back swinging. We saw that in the Colby Covington fight when he landed that shot, which brought Covington to the canvas when he seemed like he was out. So obviously Gilbert was being cautious. There's a lot on the line for these guys, right? Like it's not like going there and throwing haymakers, especially when you're in that top of that division, because anyone can in any given day slot in for a title shot. But yeah, look, it didn't have that wow factor, but obviously there was a lot of talk leading up into the throughout fight week that if I don't finish Gilbert Burns or if I don't get a win, that means I'm done. And it seemed like there was a lot of indications that George Masvidal was already dialed out. I mean, he brought his kids up on stage. It seemed like it's like this is his last thing. This is the last time I get to do this, so I'm gonna bring my family along. Um, it was some tough scenes after the fight where he was embracing his kids. It shows how much these things mean to these people, and you gotta respect these fighters, man. Like they
Yeah,
go out there and put everything on the line. The impact this has on their families, and the emotions that run after it. Like it's amazing to see. As you said before, Pereira's son crying and the elation and jubilation of Israel Adesanya's family. Gilbert Burns' family was there. And they were happy. There's a lot that goes into these things, but yeah, look, and then ultimately George Masvidal decided to hang it up and said that's it. I didn't put it. He didn't say. I mean, I don't know. Do you agree that he didn't say it as clearly as he could have? He just said, "Look, I'm out. Been doing this for a long time, 20 years. I've done everything I can. I don't feel the same anymore. I'm out." I feel like in George Masvidal style, that's definitely like it. But I don't know. Do you think he left the door open for a possible re-entry?
great point, man. I was just thinking this right now, as you said. I think UFC Octagon, but I think we could expect to see Masvidal enter the free agency, the boxing. I
Yeah,
think he's a businessman, and a
yeah,
businessman knows that there's opportunity still.
yeah,
He's still a name,
yeah.
and put him up against a legendary boxer, people are going to pay.
Hey,
So
there's the Jake. there's a Jake Paul rivalry there as well. They've got
Oh,
some beef, you know what I mean?
say
Like,
no more.
yeah, you're right. I mean, look, also like George Masvidal is one of those fighters like Conor McGregor. You know, when he hit that level of stardom,
Yeah, because
it
he's getting
he
called out a lot. Have you seen his two biggest enemies, Leon and
Kevin Holland.
Kevin Holland? Yeah, Kevin Holland say just calling him basically a pussy now
Yeah, I
for
mean,
stepping away. Hamzat as well, I think, tweeted something.
really? Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was a little bit sad to see the lack of respect shown to a veteran of the sport. I mean, say what you may, obviously he's had a very lean run since that iconic 2019 where he
Mm.
had those great fights. But I just think he still paved the way, and I think Gilbert Burns, gave that nod to him. Like he paved the way for most of these people to come up, and like they set the stage. These were the OGs of the game who were there from the beginning. Setting this up for the current generation or the current crop of fighters to reap the benefits. So I think, nonetheless, you gotta come to a point where I think. Look, maybe they were thinking, look, he's still not out. He was probably thinking the same thing we were thinking. Or that he's not
Yeah.
out. He's leaving the door open a little bit. It's hard with the Leon fight because he's a champ, right? To be able to challenge the champ, you need a win, right? I feel like even a lukewarm win in this fight would have still warranted something for Masvidal. If not, the next shot, like Masvidal's fine waiting around, so he could have just waited
Mm.
for later for Leon. But I think the Kevin Holland fight is still a very good fight. It's entertaining. Kevin Holland himself got a big win, so yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but man,
Colby's the clear contender still.
yeah, absolutely, and he
Yeah.
beat a real contender. He beat Ponzinibbio, who used
Yeah.
to be ranked quite high before that injury, and then he came back, and he's had a tough time since returning. But by no means he fought a very very dangerous fighter. Um, but yeah, man, like I want to, but before we get carried away, I do want to say that we appreciate everything that George Masvidal's was contributed towards the sport, and everything he's done, and obviously we wish him well. And I mean, we thank him for all
Mm.
the contributions. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%, man. Just a guy who was himself his whole
Yep.
career, gave so much to the sport
Yeah.
back in the Kimbo Slice days. Yeah, you could say a pioneer,
Absolutely.
EJ. We probably won't never see another George Masvidal because he was from, basically from grassroots, but
Yeah.
when the sport was still growing, and
Yeah.
he's definitely helped it grow. The
Yeah.
BMF title with Nate Diaz, like you said, the Ben Askren uh, earliest, quickest
Why me?
KO in
Yeah.
history. Stepping in on a moment's notice. One of my favorite moments was when he took on the Kamaru Usman
Yeah.
on short notice. I think
Yeah.
it was like a week's notice, and that had me so hyped.
Yeah.
The fight didn't go the way we wanted it, but
Yeah.
with the foot stomps and all that. But what a character, man! Yeah,
Yeah.
wish him well, and I hope maybe we get to see him in the exhibition ring
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
But
Or we
what
can
did you
see him
think?
get. Or we can
Yeah,
see him get more into his promoter side. He's been doing well
mm,
there, so he might fully immerse himself in that, and we might see him create
yeah.
that opportunity for more fighters. So yeah,
Yeah, and he's actually paved the way like you said, also on the business side of things now. He's a made man. He's a millionaire, like you said, and
yeah,
he's generationally set. And
yeah,
he's got the game bred boxing thing. Game bred 4 was a big success. We saw some of the purses for
yeah,
that, and it was the fighters were paid pretty well. So
yeah,
good on him for giving fighters jobs. And yeah, stay tuned. Masvidal's not going to leave this combat sports sort of
yeah,
arena. He's going to be there somewhere.
yeah,
But the rest of the card, what did you think of the? Yeah, we touched on the Holland one. We obviously Raul Rosas Jr. suffered his first loss.
yeah.
What did you think of that?
Man, I felt like he got quite, he got up, what do you call it? Outmaneuvered the whole fight.
Mm,
He didn't seem to have any answers. His opponent was quite good.
yeah,
I feel like kind of a show off. Like there's levels to this game. It's not. It was good. It was a kid with a lot of
mm,
confidence, and you should never shut that down, and you should never discourage someone for being confident and believing in themselves. But I guess you also have to have that sense of reality as well and practicality. I mean, talking about being able to beat the champion Aljamain Sterling and all that was a little bit too much, I felt. And look, this is just going to make him better, though, right? He's going to go back to the drawing board. There's a lot of hype surrounding him because he was the youngest fighter in the UFC. He was undefeated. Well, shit happens, right? He's gonna recollect.
Yeah,
Hopefully, that's what he does. He doesn't let any of these get to him. He recollects and he comes back. But look, man, he was completely outworked. That was
yeah,
my take on it. Was that he was
yep,
completely outworked. It was an easy
yep,
win for his
yep.
opponent.
Yeah, the biggest lesson I've learned is that I think he's talented and he'll definitely have a great career. He'll bounce back. But this just goes to show the severity of this DJ. When you're young and you're winning, it all looks pretty, it all looks great.
Mm.
But how does an 18-year-old deal with losses now? Psychologically, physically,
Yeah,
it's the ugly side of coming into the sport at that young. And
yeah.
I think
And
I wish him well.
yeah, I mean, it's not just a loss, but it's just a loss on such a big stage, right? But
Mm,
if he wants any inspiration, he doesn't have to look any further than the person who fought the main event in his card, Israel Adesanya. See how he takes a loss, right? Every time he's lost, he's been very graceful. He comes back and he puts on a domination. He works on himself, and that's what it is. And that's what these guys need to look up to, is to get to that point, to have that level of mental focus to be able to do that. So yeah.
yep, yep. Definitely. And so, we missing anything? We had the Holland.
It was a
We
key
had
fight. This was a fight that I was looking forward
mm,
to in the whole main card, which was the Adrian Yanez Rob Font fight. Man,
yeah.
for however long it lasted, it was action packed. Man, it was leather flying everywhere. Oh, some of the shots that were
Oof,
traded, like, man, I come in 5 seconds into that, not 5 seconds, that's probably exaggeration, but like, man, 2 minutes into that fight, I knew straight away this fight's not going to last that long because the way these guys were trading. Giannis had some success, but again, look, these young guys, obviously, they're very confident, but they need to start respecting the sort of levels, the standards that are there, or the divisions when you keep moving up. Rob Font's no joke, right? He has fought at the top of the division. He's beaten the likes of Garbrandt, Aldo. They know the standards are very high there, right? So obviously
yeah,
Giannis quite good, and look, still think he's going to do great. Obviously, started trading with someone like Rob Font, and Rob Font had got him with a clean shot. Man, it was one of the most vicious knockouts I've seen. He seemed visibly upset after the fight, Giannis, that is. And look, these kind of knockouts take a toll on you as well, right? Obviously, and again, we just hope that they take the lessons from that and recollect and come back. So yeah,
yep. No, definitely. And I want to give a shout out to the featured prelim, which was Chris Curtis, Action Man, and Gastelum.
Colin Gastelum, man, wow, what
Yep,
a fight! It won fight of the night. What a fight that was, man! Like, I couldn't tell by the end of it who won, and not in a
yep,
bad way. Like, it was like so action packed. Both guys were going at it, but I look, watching the fight, I felt good about Gastelum, so I feel like the right person won. But you got to feel good for Gastelum, man. Like, I mean, he gave Israel Adesanya one of the toughest fights in his career. And then obviously he had a bit of a slump after that, unfortunately. And it seems like he's again quite young as well. He's just 30, right? He's very
yep.
young. He's fought nothing but tough fights.
He's
He's had a
tough.
bad week of injuries. Yeah. But let's hope this is an upward trajectory for Kelvin Gastelum. I
Yeah,
really, really hope he gets through and puts himself on a win streak again.
yeah. I'm glad for that he won the bonus because they basically fought in the phone booth, which
Yeah.
which was ill advised because like Whittaker was saying on the watch along on the UFC YouTube channel, uh, it was like get out of that phone booth. You're winning.
Yeah.
Don't need. It's unnecessary. So,
Yeah.
but you won the bonus. It pleased. He won, and I like it. He's tough. He's young.
Yeah.
He's had a few setbacks, like you said,
Yeah.
but I think we'll see a few good fights coming up for him
Yeah.
now.
And not to mention, this was his first fight with a new camp. Think he's with
Yeah,
Fight Beauty now, so he's in a new
that's
camp.
right.
So
Yep.
it seems like all indications that it's going well. He's in the right direction, and hopefully, and he's another exciting contender in that middleweight division if he were to get it right. So yeah,
Yep. No, well, yeah. It's been great breaking this big card down, and we look ahead. The year is churning along. We look forward to the next big card. There's been some announcements which we'll talk about in the coming episodes. But for this one, that's a tap. DJCT UFC 287 recap. Peace.
That's a wrap. Peace.